Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Senza Forchetta. This is the second season, and today we're speaking with someone that is very special to me. His name is Lee, and he used to be my host dad when I went for a year in the United States. And today we're going to talk about what it means to be a father. So I thanks so much, Lee, for putting himself through this, and welcome
No,
here.
thank you. My pleasure.
Well, first of all, I really want to thank you so much because our relationship, I think, has grown throughout the year. I remember when I came there, I was pretty much a baby, like in the sense of my maturity level. I was 17, but I always valued you throughout that process, and uh, and
I don't
I'm
know if you
really
always did.
no, especially
Yeah,
when we played Juggernauts, I didn't like you at all, but you sucked. I have to be
it
honest.
is true. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, well, yeah, I have to show your negative side too, and it really helped me grow as a person. But then what I'm really thankful for is that with you and Mallory, so your wife, which was my host mom, we kept up the relationship, and it's
Oh, yeah.
been more than 10 years now. So that is not to be given for granted.
No.
So I thank you so much for that. And so this is, I think, say why I'm talking to you and why this is very an important topic for me is the fact that now I'm at the age where I start to think about what does it mean to be a father? Could I be a father? I start to ask myself this question: Do I am I ready for it? And I think when somebody starts to ask himself some question, you can look out for guidance who people that have done it already and they are doing it, and maybe you can learn something from them. So that's why this is important for me. But now I've spoken enough, and I think I want to ask you, what does it mean for you to be a father?
I'm not hesitating because don't want to answer it or something, but it's a, it's a big question or it's a big answer or whatever. But I'll try to encapsulate something. What does it mean? It's really important. Uh, it is. And now, I mean, I'm 70 years old. So my children I have four. They are all adults between 30 and 41 or two, or I don't know. The oldest one will give me grief for not remembering exactly. I remember her birth date, but having, you know, now being at the place where I don't ever see them. I live in Italy, they live in the United States, and they're spread across the United States. So it's not like we see each other very often. Um, but it's still extraordinarily important for me. They are such a weird extension of yourself and not an extension of yourself. And it's one of these things where it gets all complicated as the years go by because initially they're these little, you know, saprophytes that live off of you. They need you. They listen to everything you say. It's all very important. And then then you don't know anything, and then they leave. It's horrible. They leave, and then you kind of get used to that, and then the next one leaves, and then they're all gone, and then it's just you and your wife. And initially, I know I'm rambling, but I'm trying to. I want to get to a point with it. Initially, that's really ugly. To me, it was emotionally wrenching
Mhm.
until I don't know, about 6 months into the process when I suddenly went, really, since I was, let's see, Aaron would have been born when I was 26.
Mhm.
So since I was 26 until the time the last one leaves, much of you as a human being, as an individual, is taken up by doing things for someone else. I mean, you were changing diapers, they've vomited on you. You had to feed them, you have to take them to this, they want that, and I'm not complaining, I'm saying it's the way it is. And there's certainly moments when I complained. There were moments I wanted to throw one of them out of the car, it's a thing when it is a very emotionally weird ride for years. But now they're gone. And then that sort of subsumes you, or it can take you up along with your work, and then it's over. They're gone. And I realized somewhere in there a few years back that, it's just me now. I can, who am I? Where was I all of that time? And I don't mean that I was unselfish. It's just that you don't have the time to,
Mm-hmm.
You take time to do a few things, or go fishing or do this or that, but still there's a lot of stuff that's given into this parent thing. And then especially if you're working, and especially if both people are working. So now I'm at the end of that too. They're independent, living all across the United States, from the West Coast to the East Coast and in the middle. And so now for me, it's like, it is extremely important, but they're at the place where they're now where I was, busy,
Starting their
subsumed
own family.
in their own lives,
Yeah.
either starting a family and or working and or all of these things. And you start to look back and go, wow, yeah, it's not like we talk to each other that much. And they're locked into their thing, and they're not thinking about me that much. I don't think they do. I don't know how much they do or don't, but it's a weird spot to be.
Maybe it would be good to ask them if they do.
Yeah, I don't. Of course, it might be, but I will admit that's a question that I find I would rather them just tell me. That might sound odd, but there is a sense in which I don't want to dig for anything. I try to tell them,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not a person that is emotionally, in some ways, emotionally available. I think I have a lot of emotion, but it's not easy for me to, and now as this sort of barbarian living in Italy, I see it all the time.
You're a freaking barbarian.
Well, that's what I say.
Yeah, my God.
Well, I've seen the statues, the busts. I've gone through the museum in Rome and seen, here's this emperor and that emperor. And then I look at the next one and go, who's that dude? Got the big forehead and the beard and all that. And then under it says, what is it, Barbaro?
Barbaro, yeah.
Barbaro, a barbarian. Like, looks like my dad, so I know.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I think you brought it up. So let's talk. Let's talk about it. How was your dad? How was being a son and having this fatherly figure in your life growing up?
Well, so I have to avoid two things here. I don't want to sound like a whiner or something, because it's not that. But I didn't really have a relationship with him. My father was an alcoholic. He was a raging alcoholic. So for me, he was never there. He after I, moved past like 6 years old or something, he was either at work or he was really drunk or passed out. So there was very little conversation between us ever. There was no, he's kind of like the giant you avoided, because he wasn't he was never violent with me. And this is weird to even talk about this. He wasn't violent with me, but he and my next oldest brother had real issues, serious, significant, physical, punching each other in the face sort of stuff. And when he was 8 years older than me, so to see that, here are these two giants, and I'm seeing them,
This
screaming at each
barbarian,
other.
huh?
They
Maybe.
were screaming at each other and then literally punching each other. And the feeling of helplessness, because I'm just a little midget. At 6, you're not. There's nothing you're going to do about it, So you just stand there like this, and maybe try to get them to stop. So it sounds like I'm whining. I'm not. All of that happened, and it happened. It definitely shaped me. And when I think about parent and child, you go like, what is it that shapes you as a child? Well, of course, your parents are hugely involved in in it to some level. But as far as a father goes, I honestly don't know. I don't know what it's like to have a father. And I say that not, again, out of whining, because I've totally dealt with it. Well, I've dealt with it. But I don't know, because he wasn't one. He was a sick man who could not stop. He didn't want it to be the way it was. And he was a nice guy. He was a good guy.
Yeah.
When he was sane enough and not drunk, there were moments where he had a huge sense of humor, but it was very thin water. 85% of my relationship with him, he was drunk, and that's not him. That's a different man. So I don't know what to say about that until this. Sorry.
No, I think
at 13 he died. Sorry.
At which time? How old were you when he died?
I was 13 and he died. Within a couple of years, my mom had remarried, and she married a guy who initially I didn't like and wanted nothing to do with. But weirdly, within about a year, this guy won me over and became my father. So I did have one. It was just later, and I already had developed a whole lot of traits, whether they were good or negative, But he did teach me a lot of things. He had his own problems, but he was, and if I look to a father figure, it was him. Or my oldest brother. My oldest brother is 9 years older than me. And so, when I was 8, he was 17 and in the Marines and then came back. And so I there was some of that, I think. So those, I don't know what else to say about it, except those were sort of okay, I'm going to switch. My stepfather could work.
What was his name?
Fred.
Fred.
Fred, when I was 17, he could work me into the ground. And he was probably 60. He was in his 60s. Literally, if we were working physically doing something, I'd be dead. And he'd still be throwing stuff and doing this positive stuff. He used to call me Lee Boy. Come on, Lee Boy, take him out of face. We can beat this. That was his thing. He was a cowboy when he was a kid, literally a cowboy, and learned to work hard. And he did, and I didn't, because no one knew where I was after I was 13.
What do you mean by that? Can you explain better? What do you mean nobody knew where you were?
My mom had to work, so she was gone. So I went to school. She was gone. I came home. She was gone. She would make dinner. The woman is the rock of my life. There was no question about that, of our whole family. But she was busy. And then she was in a relationship. And then they had a job that took them away at night often. So I was where I was. And I was not in good places quite often. After about 14, I started finding my way towards
other solutions.
Yeah, exactly. So and there was very little guidance. That's what I mean. We were feral, what people describe as feral. My sister and I were really pretty feral for a number of years. And so, yeah, but I'll stop. But Fred did do a great deal for me in terms of, I knew my father loved me. That was, I think, the thing I've always told people. I never felt unloved. I always felt loved. It's just that the dude's drunk again, falling off the couch onto the floor, and
What was also Fred drunk or
No. He only drank occasionally, and that wasn't a good idea because he
of
wasn't a
course.
good drunk. No. There, I don't know how
Yeah,
that came out.
I think. Well, I thank you so much for this. I think it's not easy to speak about things that hurt us because
Sure.
and the pain probably sometimes doesn't really go away. So to have to live with it, I think it's tough. So I thank you for it for the fact that you came out the way that you did, not even though you had a tougher time to find your path.
Yeah, I will say one more thing about it, and that is that I think it's one of the reasons. The reason that came out is you asked me, why don't I ask my children, or get into a discussion with them about how they feel about me, or you learn not to do that when you're in a family like that. I learned.
You don't want to know the answers, maybe.
Well, I think it was this. I think I learned early on a couple of things which to me have been not always positive by any means, but they helped me survive, which were a couple of sayings which I said to myself all the time. What can I say on here? Can I be rude?
You can say whatever you want.
Okay, well, I didn't want to shock anyone, not I've heard, but
I make a lot of weird sounds, so you can really.
I don't want to make weird sounds, though.
You do anyway, even if you don't want
occasionally. But I guess I had sort of two mantras which went through my head as a child from the time I was 14 or 15, especially in high school. And that is, I don't give a fuck what you think about anything. That's how I dealt with things. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're the vice principal. I don't care. I don't give a fuck what you want me to do, because that allowed me to just shove everybody back. Because if you get close, it's going to fall apart. You're going to, and I never said that that was never a thing that went through my head. I'm going to do this. But I found as I started to look back on my own life that that's how I dealt with stuff. So that when I was in school, I don't care. You should be doing this. I don't care. Why do you think I care what you think? That became my mantra. And that is helpful, but it's not good. I realized later in life, that's a little bit too much fist in the face,
Do you still do it? Do you feel like you still do it?
Oh, all the time. But I don't do it as crudely. In other words, yeah, I do. I do. It's part of me. But I think I've learned some emotional intelligence, which I didn't learn as a child. And so as a parent, I won't go into it, but I think that was a thing I didn't learn and had to learn it later, which was you really can't be feral. You can't just be a dog that bites everybody that comes around. It doesn't work. And so,
you can bite sometimes. I think, if we think about the ego, sometimes, like, if it exists, there is a reason. And I think sometimes we just need to protect ourselves.
We defend ourselves, yeah.
The people that we care about. So it's a natural thing that happens. But I appreciate the fact that you also recognize that we don't always need it, right? We don't always need to, because we're pushing people away from us.
Yeah.
And this is actually counterintuitive on what we truly want.
Yeah, right. And so I also think it leads you to a place where you don't open yourself up.
Yeah.
Because even if you want to. So, but I recognize I'm an individual that has, I'm a social human. I taught first graders, second graders, third graders.
Yeah, you are a professor. I mean, we forgot to mention you're a professor of physical therapy.
Yeah, I'm able to, I think I get along with students, but I will say that tendency is to stay at arm's length. I do make relationships, but they are few and far between and they're very deep. I don't do superficial well. I don't want to chit chat. I can't do small talk.
But that's okay. I mean, that's
Yeah, it's just not a thing for me. I avoid it. I actually hide from it. But I do make deep relationships, but with students, for instance, I will kid them. It is my forte, which is to harass students from the time I walk in the room until I leave. And they thought it's all history now, but they thought it was funny and all of that. And, every once in a while I probably ticked somebody off, but I've learned how to do that. But it is still, to me, a sign of an unwillingness to get intimate, because within the intimacy is the danger, And so I think we learn over time how to accept the danger.
Yeah. What is really the danger? Like, what is there to be what is it so that we need to be so scared about, Because I feel like if we just dig, at the end of the day, what there really is fear.
Mm-hmm.
But if you surpass that fear, like, it's
well,
okay.
That's like talking to somebody. To me, I mean, I agree with you, but it's like saying to somebody, "Oh, just pet the dog. He's not going to do anything to you." But there's an individual who has been bitten a number of times, and all of your talk is a waste of air because they know the damn thing can bite, and they're convinced it's going to. So there is that process. I understand what you're saying. I totally agree with you. In the end, if we could all just sort of withdraw and look at dogs from above and then start over, and our nervous systems were not programmed to protect ourselves from that thing, because there is a wiring that goes on. It is a deep and strong wiring within the nervous system to avoid the things that have hurt us. And to get over those I think it's the struggle. It's the thing, and but I don't have the answers other than,
Yeah. And I think everybody's journey is different, and we cannot ask people to simply move on, because, like, that's in itself is not respecting the pain that you or people feel. And I get that. Why did I say this? It's because I feel fortunate and I feel really lucky to know what it means to let go, and to finally, like, have my guard up when I need to. And again, it's a constant learning. It's not like today you understood it and tomorrow there's something new and you still have to relearn it. But in the process of healing that I'm trying to do, it's the moment I'm able to let go.
Sure.
What I get, it's universal. Like, it's so huge, I cannot even put into words. So that's why it's my let's say that my challenge to you to say, maybe there are moments in which you can say, wait a moment, let me get this guard down. Like, let recognize that ego, or which is justifiably there, but say, do I need it today in this moment? And maybe you say, yes, I need it. But maybe at the same time, in that moment, you say, I don't really need it. And that's the first one of the moments in which you can really feel the love that you also have inside yourself.
Excuse me. I'll just clear my throat for half an hour.
That's okay. But yeah, and now I want to go back to being a father. And I think, if you, think about your journey, what are some other learnings that you came across, or even some funny moments? Because you said it at the beginning, it's a roller coaster of emotion. Can you, like, guide us through some of the emotion that come to mind in this moment and that you want to share with everybody?
Oh, Lord.
Whatever comes to.
Well, they range. It's I speak about myself as if I don't have these emotions or have a block, and that's the absolute opposite of the truth.
I know.
They are very real, and they're very. I just know myself well enough to know they're very deep. And that's the problem with them. And I don't want to go back into the problem. I want to answer your question, but the problem with them is because they are so real, and because I think sounds like I'm going back, and I am so
That's
tough.
okay. We can go back.
And I'm bigger than you, so I get to do what I want.
You can sit on me and kill me. So I respect your authority.
What in the world was I going to say now? Oh, I think as I look at myself, one of the things that has occurred as a result of not having. So I don't want to do a thing here. I don't want to make it sound like my parents. Well, I didn't like them, and I loved them to death. I love my father. It was horrible when he died. I'm just talking about the reality of it, because when you're that age, you don't really think in those terms anyway. You're just sort of, I think, for the most part, walking through trying to figure it out. It's later when we start to sort of look back on things and reflect. But I think I learned to avoid. And so the other thing that happens is I think of it as a hole in my chest, because it's what it feels like when I think of. God, you were supposed to ask me about being a parent, not this. But I think in the end, this really is the crux of what it's about. And I don't want to get emotional here and start, crying all over the place. But the truth is, loss is very difficult for me. Really difficult. I can't say goodbye to people. Because it'll be the end. And that's the fear. It's the end of it. It'll never be the same. It'll never be back. And I look at my oldest brother, who has a different. So, we grew up in the same house, but he was 9 years older. So he missed a chunk. He missed the really bad chunk. Now, he was around, but he was married, living elsewhere. He missed the chunk where my dad had gotten so bad that he was always drunk, that it was just this. And so stuff that happened between my mom and him and all of that. So my point being, he has a different attitude. He looks back on the past and sees things like his children playing on the beach and that sort of stuff, and it makes him smile. He feels charged. I look back on it, and it opens this hole that I don't want to put anything in, and I don't want to go in there. That's how I've come to recognize it. And so for me, that's kind of the journey, is finding the way to approach it. So why did I bring that up? Because that's what happens with your children. God, they go fast. God, they just go so fast. But at the time, you are, as a parent, so caught up in everything. You're living your life, and it's at the time, because you go. I mean, this is old man, musing now. You have childhood, where you're just a little dork running around doing stuff, and everything's magic. Everything's magic. Like, everything's cool.
Which probably it is, but we forget.
Yeah. Because you've never seen it. You don't know squat. Mm-hmm. And then you kind of hit the stage, that everyone's sort of teenagers, where we're in high school and stuff. I mean, I hated high school. I hated the whole thing, which, of course, that was after the time my dad had died. He died when I was in June. So in the States, it's 7, 8, 9 is junior high, 10, 11, 12 is high school.
Right.
And, but in high school, now you're dealing with the junk. You're trying to figure out what you are, who you are. How do people think about you? What am I? How do you talk to girls? How do you, whatever it is, it's a questioning period, and nothing is clear or clean. And I think, especially if you if you don't have parents. On the other hand, I don't know how much I would have listened to them. Because I look back at my own kids at that age, they didn't listen to me at that point. You just wanted to say to them, stupid, I did this. I'm telling you. Like, and you know, they give you the look and they do the thing and they walk out, telling me what to do. Okay, have fun with this. Let me know. You know, you reach this place where you're trying to walk out of the nest, and you have to. It has to happen. Then you become into the stage where now you are working. There's the whole college thing if you go, but whatever. There's a period of time where now you have to make money.
So like after college, you mean?
Exactly.
Like, or if you
school,
after school, yeah.
Exactly, whatever. Now you get locked into a thing. And there's people who avoid this, and God bless them. I don't know how they do it. But for most of us, especially if you are now married and have a child, buddy, the pack's on your back. You gotta walk up the hill, dude, up the hill. Why? Because you gotta have money. You have to. And so you fall into it. You fall into I can hear Pink Floyd in my head right now, you know. You become another brick in the wall. You have to. So you do. And when you're in that period, and for me, it probably lasted from, I don't know, I got out of my doctoral program I was 30. So really at that point, the 26 to 30 was really busy because it was some heavy school, and we had one daughter. So it was a lot going on, but I was locked, you know, just a machine. I remember a day driving my daughter into the hospital where my wife was working, because what we would do is I would drive her in as often as I could for Mallory to breastfeed her. Because otherwise she's expressing milk and we're keeping it in the refrigerator and I'm feeding her at home, you know. But I'm driving her in there and I got this little Toyota Celica and, you know, manual gear shift. I got a cup of coffee this big because I had to have those about 3 times a day just to do the.
You still do it. You still have big coffees.
Yeah, but you know, they not like that. That was like this.
Okay.
I never drank coffee in my life till I got into school at that level. And then it was like, God, you have to have one. You're up to, anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm drinking this thing with this hand. And oh no, with the right hand, I have a bottle in Erin's mouth. She's sitting next to me in a car seat. This is back before we had airbags, so you could throw your kid in a car seat anywhere. And then, so I'm holding the bottle in her mouth with my right hand. My left hand, I've got the coffee. I'm steering with my knee, and then I have to reach over and shift every once in a while. And I've got to get there, you know? It's like this, you're just a machine.
I ask you, do you think you could have done it in a different way? Or that was the only way possible?
I don't know how you could have done it a different way. Not when you get locked into the machine. What I mean by the machine is you have got an anatomy test tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And they ain't playing. It is a lot of junk. You can't study it the night before and go in there. You've been hammering on it for 4 days. Plus, you've got 6 hours of classes to 7 hours of classes every day. Not only that, but you got to study every night. This isn't the sort of thing where I was in high school. I never even learned to study. I was a total flake in high school. Never learned to study. So for me, it was like being hooked onto a treadmill that did not stop. I don't know if you ever heard Jethro Tull's song, what is it?
Old man moment where he forgets stuff.
Yeah, thanks. Well, if you'd have told me, I'd have looked this up. Now, I'm having an old man moment. It'll come to me.
That's okay.
It's about a train that won't stop going. It's about this guy. He's on a train and his wife is in bed with his best friend and his kids are jumping off at every stop. But locomotive breath, that's what it's called. If you haven't heard it, you should put it on. You should put it on this.
Okay, I will put it as in
that's what I'm saying.
The comments, or in the description. You can. Yeah, that's a good idea. Thank you very much.
But that's what I felt like. And if you were to say, is there another way to do it? Yeah, I could quit school. Mm-hmm. Because you can't do it part-time. You're in it. And you can't get rid of your kid. She's right there. She's got to you got to feed her. You got to put her to bed. I remember times, and this sounds like a whine, but this is what parenthood is. I remember times when I was so tired and Mallory's at work because we did different shifts.
Right.
She would work in the evening shift and not get home till after 11. And so she was with the baby until there was a little bit of time there in between when she went and I got home, but the baby was only with a sitter for an hour. So then I would take her. Now I've got her. So
Right.
if she's awake, I got her. I'd be so tired. I would put her in her room. I can still see this. She had this little T-shirt with a Snoopy on it. Put her in her room and lay in the doorway, so she couldn't get out. And she had a bunch of toys, and lay on the floor and fall asleep. And my kids playing on the floor there. And if she tried to get out, it would wake me up.
Right.
So no, the answer is not do that. Yes, if what you're going to do is say at the age of 26, all of this stuff that I see in the future that I'm planning on taking on for the good of my family and the good of me and the good of mankind.
Right.
And I will stop doing it and I'll start selling patchouli at some little shop in Portland and have a joint in the afternoon. And,
Uh,
that, I mean, a person can do it. There was all kinds of things in between there. I didn't mean to, but no, the answer is you are on the locomotive. And there's no way to get off but the train. It won't stop. Oh, that's what the song does. You got to hear it. It just drives you. This thing, they were so good at driving this thing and then adding all of that stuff. And that's where you are in that period. And that's when your kids are little. So you're trying to be good. You're trying to be a good dad, and now everybody talks about it. And I'm glad they do. The need to balance your work life with your family life and your social experience with you. There's all of this talk about how to do it. And yet the cost of houses has gone up, the cost of everything's gone up. And so you either choose to live a very different life, which is a legitimate thing. I would never greet anybody that did that. But if what you're going to do is get to a profession, unless you did it before you got married, before you had kids, like you've done, it is a tough wheel. And that's, I think, the biggest problem. In the end, I don't think any parent will look back who did that, a father and mother that had to do it, and say, what I should have done is worked harder. I wish I'd made more money. No, what I wish I had done was gone out in the backyard with Reese more. And because the guy can't hit a baseball to save his life. So if I'd have got out there, and chucked him at him a little more often,
he could have been the next.
He'd be on the Mariners. I wouldn't have to eat. I mean, I could eat, but I wouldn't have to work to eat. So
that's very interesting. And I'm gonna take you back because I think you said something quite interesting, especially the fact that you were in this locomotive that you couldn't stop. I wonder if your father felt the same way, that he was on another locomotive which was probably even bigger than yours and harder. And if he couldn't, he just didn't know how.
Yeah. And I think there was another problem for him, and that is that so he didn't know how, who knows how to break that kind of addiction. And so you look back and you go, well, what was his family like? It wasn't good.
Yeah.
It wasn't good. And so he had his stuff, and so I'm not trying to not answer it. But I think this is really, to me, it's really important about parents and all of that. And that is, we have to forgive them. Because I remember one time, this is such a terrible thing. I hated this about myself at the time. I don't know why it sticks in my head so much, but it does. So I'm like a junior in high school or something. And I can't remember what it was that my mom had done. My life at that point, when I was a junior in high school, I smoked dope 5 times a day, 4 times a day. Now, I don't know anything about marijuana since the 70s, okay? I haven't tasted any. Everybody tells me, like, you would not do what you guys did back then, which is to smoke your own joint, the whole thing. Which is what we did. You'd roll one and smoke it with 3 friends, but you'd smoke 3. It was weak as heck. And it was a nice little buzz until you did it the way I did, which was to be an addict like my dad. It was 4 or 5 times a day. I was one of my few friends that worked. I worked at a restaurant, so I would buy it and they would smoke it. That's how it worked.
You were the cool
And
friend.
I guess I don't know that was how they looked at it. I was the one with some money. I had the plastic bag in my pocket. And what the heck was the question? How did I get on this? I'm having another old man moment.
We started from saying how your father was probably in the same locomotive,
Yeah.
Well, a different one, but
and it was about forgiveness.
Yes.
And so the reason I got into that was because that's my mindset. I didn't even go to school. I would miss 30 classes a semester, all of them, because I didn't care. Like, why am I going to this? It's a waste of time. That's where I was. I didn't know what I was going to do after. I didn't care. I mean, I cared. That bothered me, but it was like, I hate this, and I'm not doing this. There was something she did, and I don't even remember what it was, but I remember being so angry at her and writing something to a friend, a note, because I couldn't get to him. So I had wrote him a note, and I couldn't go there because of what she had made me do, that witch, And I was calling her all these names and saying fucking this and that. And I saw the note later and went, how could I say that about my mom? But I did. It's the way I felt.
Right.
And with my dad, it didn't hit for about 3 years after he died. It reached a place where about 3 years afterwards where I hated his guts. Son of a bitch did nothing but leave us. He just ignored us. He caused nothing but grief. He did all of this stuff, and then he died. And that's how I felt. But within about, I don't know, 3 more years, I forgave him. I had to do exactly what you said, and that is see him as a human and see what his path was. And I didn't know. He was a merchant marine officer. He went to sea for 3 months at a time, first mate on merchant ships. So we wouldn't see him then either. It was only when he came home, and then he was drunk. So
imagine how you must have felt in those trips and being away from you guys. If you can relate to the fact of you being a father and how much love you feel for your children. And I would argue that this is across everybody,
Yep.
Even the ones that don't recognize or are not able to see it. And it's a pity, but that's why we should always remember at the end of the day, they are people just like us. And if we want to be forgiven when we make mistakes, and believe me, I make a lot of mistakes, but I'm learning to ask for forgiveness and to say that I'm sorry, because it's probably one of the hardest things to do, to say I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, that's one of those things where you are now opening yourself up, because a person might forgive you. It might not. And so you're taking your clothes off, Here I am. Yeah, I think that's why, I don't even know. There's love is such a weird word, because there's so many, I love donuts, and I love my dog, and I love my wife, and, I love baseball. And so what do you love? What does that mean? But the thing we're talking about with humans, whatever that bond, and it is strong. In my family, it's strong. It's very strong. It's underground. This might sound weird, but we're Norwegian Americans, My take on Norwegian Americans is they don't show a lot of emotion on the whole. And I'm sure there's plenty of, totally off the wall people that show all kinds. But on the whole, and you don't show much because it's bad form. It's just bad form. You don't do that. So you're told to stay contained. If I scored a goal in soccer as a kid, and I had done and nobody did that back then, by the way.
Score a goal?
No, well, yeah, there was a few goals scored. But what I was going to say was, if you scored a goal, You didn't do the run away from all of your friends. Run as far and as fast as you can so they can't get to you. Slide on your knees, rip your shirt off, and have them do this thing. If I'd have done that, my dad would have hauled me off in the corner and said, "What was that? Are you nuts?" You put your head down and you walk back up the field. That's how it was. And that's what we did. And now it's different. So you just go, it still bugs me. I look at it and go, okay, whatever. But, you know,
But
that's opening yourself in a way that as a Northern European, and I don't want to blame all that. I'm just saying it is true. You get from your family what they got from their family, and it sticks around. And if they applauded me, it was very small, but I saw it. No one else might see it, but I saw it. They could just do a little. I remember my dad at a place where I did score a goal, and he was actually at it. I think he probably came to 3 games. You know, I played from the time I was 8 till I was 40. But I scored a goal, and I looked over at him, of course, and all he did was make a fist with his right hand. He didn't raise it up. It was down by his side, but his right hand, he made a fist, and I saw it. You know, I knew that's what it was. But people all around were cheering, you know, jumping up and down. My old man wasn't going to do that because that isn't not what you did. So there is this containment, but the point I was trying to make is, but underneath, these people feel stuff deeply. And as a family, you learn, you don't talk about your family. Your family, this is a quiet thing. This is no matter what happens here. This is in the family, you know. So we were very close, very tight, but it was not expressed. So I think that's part of it. Anyway, how did I get on that?
I love all of this. I'm loving it. You know, I think on this, and also to kind of give it some context and to respect it, I feel like it probably had a reason why your dad used to do just the fist. But I wonder, as a kid grows up, you know, you have different size of shoes, right? And I wonder if the same shoes that was valid in that time is still valid today. So that's my also challenge for you to think is that shoes, which had a lot of positive thing and it made sense for the time, but it also had a lot of negative thing. But now we are in another time. Like you've grown, you're not that child anymore. Mm-hmm. And does that shoe still fit? Does that still make sense? And I don't want an answer. I think it's hard to answer in 2 minutes but I hope it is a good question for you to think about. I don't know. Maybe it isn't, huh? I'm just going.
Well, I'm certainly not arguing with you. I agree. I think if perhaps if someone's listening to this and it resonates in any way, they will recognize this. If you've had serious dysfunction in your family, the emotional intelligence that we develop this isn't shallow water. It's not the sort of thing you say, and I know you're not doing that. I appreciate what you're saying, but I also want to say, if you think I haven't thought that,
I know you have.
You live on another planet, because people who deal with issues that are, you know, fairly deep-seated from the time they were little weirdos, that stuff is wired. It is neurons. We are neurons talking to each other. And when they are wired with deep emotion, especially fearful emotions, you can talk all day long. Doesn't change people. People, in my experience, develop these wiring patterns where I don't want to call them all habits, but I think there's plenty of
Habits. That's interesting. You mentioned that, by the way.
Well, the reason I'm saying it is because for me, probably one of the more important people in terms of how I think of all these things is William James, an American philosopher and a psychologist, experimental psychologist, literally in the late 1800s, who is still totally relevant as far as I'm concerned. And his comment throughout his, like, he has a book on sort of the general principles of psychology, in which he makes it clear we're a bundle of habits. What we are is mostly habit. This is at the time when they were simply beginning to find the wiring. They had no idea how this stuff happened. But now habitual wiring, the wiring through the nervous system is becoming much better understood. I'm not going to suggest I could rip it off, out of my head for anyone, but
Or could you?
no, only on a superficial level. So
okay,
the idea that what we do is change those habits through talk was a concept in my mind, and I have no idea you're gonna hear this, but if you have any psychiatrists, they're all gonna send you hate mail.
okay.
It's bullshit. It's bullshit. It's. I'm not saying it's not nice to talk to someone and be able to get things off of your chest, but it doesn't change the wiring. The only thing that changes the wiring is behavior. We change the wiring here by doing a thing. Exactly what you said. Shouldn't you say to your kids, whatever it is, I love you, what do you think of me? Shouldn't you take that step, put your foot in the water and start? Yes, you should, because it's the only way to rewire.
Right.
It doesn't happen through chat. So, and the other thing.
Can I say something on this?
Absolutely, cut me off.
Yeah, because I think you're right in the sense that it doesn't happen by talk, that it's not enough. I cannot just say something and ultimately that is true, even though it could. It needs to manifest in the material world of things. So, like, if I know I should say, I love you, Lauren, next time I talk to you, I'm going to say, I love you, Lauren. And in that way, I am putting the seed for changing that behavior. And I don't think that there is anything in the world, like no trauma, that can, justify the fact for you that you cannot say that in that moment. So yes, I feel like words is not enough, but words can be something like people find it in music.
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about that. You're talking about behavior. You're talking about action. That's not words. That's the action.
It can start with a word. It can start with a friend telling you, "Hey, I told my kid I love them," and that's a word from someone else who's done it, but the light that you see in their eyes is so powerful that you want it too, and so you do.
I hear you, but what I was saying was not this, but that therapy, psychotherapy, talk therapy. Sit here, tell me what is your problem with your mother? How long have you hated your mother? That's bunk.
And
it is bunk.
I don't agree. And I tell you why. And I tell you why. It's the shoe that we were talking about before. Maybe the shoe for you personally, because of your life story, it doesn't work. But luckily, for the majority of the world, of the Western world, we live in a privileged society where the majority of people don't have to be slaves. Or yes, we have our problems like every society, and there are people who have terrible lives, but there's a lot of people who also have relatively simple life where their trauma is maybe something not so ingrained into themselves, where just talking about it could help them see something that makes sense. So by that, I totally see your point, and I think it's a tool. And a tool doesn't work with anything, with everything. It works on some people, it doesn't work on other. And I think that's okay. But I think we shouldn't downgrade it to say it doesn't, it's all junk. Because for some people, yes, I mean, for you it is. And I think.
No, I'm not talking about for me. I'm talking about, let's talk about the person who's afraid of dogs.
Of dogs.
Talk to them all day.
Uh,
Because it's not a thought process.
yeah,
It's not
okay.
a, well, I don't mean it's not a thought process. It is, because what the hell is thought? It's neurons firing with each other. We don't have minds, we have tissue, we have cells, and when
We
they
have hearts.
interchange electrical activity with one another, somehow thought happens, which still no one can explain. So I get it, but what I'm saying is what must occur is the suppression of connections, wiring. They must be suppressed. And then the production of new wirings. That's when change happens.
Okay.
Not when I say to you, Giovanni, listen to me, my man. Dogs are, they've done this. You know, human beings have been with dogs forever. And listen to me, look, just a sec. You tell me about your experience with your dogs and how that did that. And then you talk. And then I go, okay, good. We've done this now for 3 months. You've had psychotherapy. We went back because your problem with dogs isn't the dogs, it's your mom, or it's your dad, or it's your sex life, or it's, and so we're going to get to the bottom of that. Let's get into that and let's talk about that. Stay on the couch. We want to talk some more. Hell, somebody doing cognitive based therapy would have had you not afraid of dogs in 3 weeks. But
For
you can
sure.
do psychotherapy for the next 2 years and pay whatever amounts they're getting for it,
Yeah.
because we know that, and I'm again, I know I'm lecturing here, but you did bring on a lecture. But we know, of course, and I think this is, I'm not trying to tell you what you're saying, but I think this is what you're saying. Yeah, it helps to talk to people about it. It can help you sort of get off a wall. It can help you think that maybe I should try this. And what it does is get you to try cognitive based therapy, not to try more talk therapy. That's what the talk would do for you, but it won't change behavior.
Sure. Like I said, like it's not one thing will solve everything. It's part of a bigger picture. But
Okay.
like,
Yeah, I agree.
let's also bring that into the context and not say that it's terrible.
I
And
didn't say
I
it was
mean,
terrible. I said it didn't work.
well, so now I want to wrap this up. And I want to do it with the last thing you said, cognitive therapy, whatever. I'm not an expert in this. And I want you to leave a message for your kids here. And I want you to say something that you want to say to them.
Okay. This is what would happen normally. I would say, Reese, you owe me $50. Dude, I would say something flippant that is also cute. It's an attempt to pull on their shirt a little bit, make them laugh. They give me grief back. I did this with Lauren or Erin yesterday. I sent her a text. She works for Social Security in Portland, Oregon. I don't know if you're kind of up on the politics of what's swinging out there, but my text to her was, dude, I hear you broke Social Security, and now they've had to send the National Guard into Portland to fix it. And she sent back to me, I was on a sick day once, and the whole thing goes to hell. That's our conversation.
Okay. This is what you used to say.
No, this is what I say.
Yeah,
I'm
what you
telling
say.
you, is what I say. Now, I get it. You want me to do a little thing here because you're going to have me start to change my wiring right in front of you, and you. I can do that. It's not like I don't do that. We're talking about stuff, and I'm saying things as if, you know, this is how it is, and I never. There isn't anybody other than my wife who. I say that. My sister and brother, who are the only immediate family of mine still alive. There is this same kind of connection. And the truth is that Olsons, except for my sister, tend not to say this stuff out loud very much. My brother is a big pansy, and he has in his last 20 years gotten that way, you know. So that we say this stuff to each other, and now I will say
Thank
it
you.
at the level for me that I think is, and that is that there isn't anybody more important. There has never been anybody more important. I didn't do everything right. There's no, I didn't even know what at times what was right, and times I was too selfish to do the right thing. It's the way life is. But I love you. I do. There's nothing more important. I'd, I don't want to say what I would do, would I stand in front of a train for you? I think I would. I think anybody that tried to mess with you in front of me would find even an old man can still, cause problems because I love you. And here's the other interesting piece. They don't do it either. They don't do that kind of thing. My children don't do that and don't let Mallory hear this. She doesn't do it either. I mean, you were there. You saw our house. We don't walk around holding hands and touching each other all the time and how I love you. It makes me want to throw up when people do that. It literally, when somebody is being all this talk all the time about how much they love them, and it's like, okay, you do that, but dude, don't do it with me because that makes me physically not feel well. But the small things. So this is the thing I want to say. I know you didn't ask me for this, but I want to say one more thing before you wrap up. I heard, if you'll give me a couple minutes, because I think it's important to explain your shoe theory. I heard Garudi Galdekut get interviewed, which is, I think, pretty germane right now since.
Who's that? I'm sorry, I don't
know.
Yeah.
So what's wrong with me? The lady that worked with chimps, she just died yesterday.
Okay.
Jane Goodall. So there were 3 women that this Professor Leakey hired back in the 60s or early 70s. 3 women, grad students. He hired them to go. They literally lived with. One was something in the mist, gorillas in the mist. That woman, whose name has escaped me, she studied gorillas. One of them studied apes. One of them, Garudi Galdekut, studied orangutans. Literally lived in the jungle with these animals and studied them in ways that no one had ever done. They looked at them more as sociologists and trying to not interfere, but at the same time understand them. And it wasn't about their biochemistry. It was about their behavior and what they were. So why am I saying this? Because she gets interviewed on the CBC when I lived in Canada. And the interviewer says to her at one point, so you've worked with orangs for a long time. And I read in your book that you said that orangutans emotionally are a lot like Norwegians. And she started laughing and said, yes. And he said, well, you're going to have to explain this because I'm going to get a lot of emails now saying, what? And so she said, here's what I mean. Is that I was with orangs for 10 years. And I thought they showed no emotion. If you see chimpanzees or gorillas, they show emotion all the time. They're, apes are slamming their fists in their chest and chasing things off, and the gorillas and the chimps are running around, screaming at things. But the orangs just sit there, and they move very slowly, and they don't show that kind of rage or that kind of. And she said, so I figured they didn't do it at all. And then one day I saw an orangutan that had a thorn in its paw, and it couldn't get it out. And we're supposed to not interfere, but this thing was dealing with it for a long time. And she said, I wasn't going to let it just suffer. I walked over to it, and they were used to me by now. They didn't. So, and she said, I took its paw and removed it. And it turned away from me. And as it did, it raised one finger. And then it kept moving. And she said, I suddenly went, I have seen that. I have seen that gesture time and time again and thought it meant nothing. So the issue here is not my shoes. It's your ability to pick up that cue. Because to the orangutan, that cue was huge. They don't need to express themselves. You're a bloody Italian, Giovanni. Like, give me a break. So Norwegians don't act like Italians. And that doesn't mean their shoes are too small. it means they do it differently. But I do get your point. There is also the place where it's not just about the way you culturally learn to do things. It's about something that's interfering with your ability to become more whole, more of a person. And I get that. So I was just griefing you on that. But that to me, when I heard that, I just went, oh, God, no kidding. That is exactly what it is. Please stop telling me I need to express emotion more, because what you do show emotion are the things you're not emotionally capable of controlling, which I think is one of this is the last thing I'll say, most important things parents have to give their children, and that is emotional intelligence. How to control their own emotions. Not, I don't mean suppress them. I mean, because I didn't. I learned, you push me, buddy, you and I are going to town. That's what I was taught to do. Not just because I saw it happen, verbally. You don't screw with us. Physically, my two brothers, they would tell me, here's how you fight. Here's how you hit a guy. Here's what you do. All of that coming in. So the anger emotion, I couldn't control. I still am not good at it. I have, tried to buy new shoes lots of times and taken all kinds of approaches to reducing it, and it has. Plus I'm an old man, I can't do it anymore. But
that helps.
There's that difference between sort of the cultural piece and the stuff that is wired badly. And I think we do get wired badly, badly in the sense that we're not whole. Anger being thrown all over people is not. The guys that I saw on a soccer field who I admired the most were my roommate or the players on my team, who, when they got taken down viciously, I was over there ready to fight. I remember a guy named Pete who one time got up after the worst tackle I've ever seen. Absolute flagrant crap. He's standing up. He's got glasses on. There's grass embedded in his glasses. He's trying to get it out. And I'm about to grab the guy and hit him. And Peter goes like this. He reaches out and touches me and says, "Don't do it, man. Don't worry about it. Don't worry." As he's pulling grass in. Really, don't worry about it. And his calmness stopped me. Whereas I had other players who would come up and grab me and try to stop me. I'd hit them.
Yeah.
That's the kind of level of stuff coming out. But most of the time, from my custom, from culture, you don't show it. Only when the trigger's pushed. So,
well, there you go. I really love the orangutango analogy, because I think nature can teach us so much. And you are right in the sense that we need to pick up those clues. But also on your other side, you said at the end, right, the need for peace. And I think if we look at the world today, I think we need peace.
It's a very nice thought.
But it is a nice thought, and I think most likely we are not going to be able to find peace, because that's how humans are. But my only hope for the future is, because I hope to live some other years on this earth, right, is that we can find a way to have peace, even recognizing the fact that you and I don't need to have the same shoe. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
You don't need to show your emotion. It's nobody asking you to show your emotion, but people are asking you to feel like you are just yourself, and you being yourself doesn't kill someone else, because there is enough space even for us to not talk to each other, but still respect the fact that we are different and we can continue living our life. And I mean, you also asked me before that you didn't get what the purpose of this podcast was. And honestly, I still don't know. But I think it is this, in a way. It is to try to see if we can find peace with ourselves and with each other.
It'd be a nice thing.
It'd be a nice thing. I mean, maybe it won't work. It's just my attempt to do it. And I
can say this: if your podcast causes world peace, you're going to be the dude. Your picture's going to be on everything. And Giovanni,
I don't care
how much money you can make.
I don't. It's okay. I mean, as long as I listening to your advice, I think you said it. And if I'm able to live my life peacefully, where I can have my family, I can have my kids, I can have my wife and friends, and live my life peacefully with a
Yeah.
lot of joy.
Oh, yeah.
Sadness will come because we will lose people. Like, that's a reality.
Yep.
Death is part of life, but not to add any more stress to it. Just like that would be for me, and I think for a lot of people already wonderful. So just living. Cheers to that. Lee, thank you so much. Really, so many insight. I don't think we can even try to wrap them up, or I think we can listen to this multiple times and maybe every time learn something new from it. And I thank you so much for having opened up and said things that you probably didn't think you were going to say.
Well, I did drink a Guinness during the time, which does suppress the cortex, the area, that keeps you from saying what you didn't want to say. So there you go.
I'm happy. And I'm sure that also your children would love to hear, especially the last part. And also Mallory, So
Oh, dude, I appreciate the advice.
yeah. Also, let's also say, all of this, we can also be quite light about it.
Yeah.
That life is also a joke.
So if I can't laugh at everything, I can't get through.
Yeah, come on. Like, you can sit on me and fart on me.
I would never do that, Giovanni.
You did it. You did it.
It's
That's a
probably
trauma.
why
I have to.
it's probably why you're seeking peace now.
Yeah.
So it was action. It was not talk on my part. It was action.
Yeah,
And
it helped me a lot. Yeah.
yeah. You're welcome.
You can see how bad I turned out, so it's your fault. You live with that. Well, again, Lee, thank you so much. And
Yeah, my pleasure.
I hope that this is helpful for everybody. Bye-bye.
Okay. All right, man. See you. I love you, Giovanni.
Oh, nice.